people wait a long period of time before trying to hire a lawyer because they run into a dead end at some point. The insurance adjuster is still giving them a low ball offer like $2,000, $1,500, $500, and then they decide to call a lawyer. Can you explain why that's a bad thing?
If your goal is to obtain your maximum and fair compensation, you're never going to get it without a lawyer. And so all those, any conversations you have with the adjuster on your own, you're really just wasting your time.
Hey guys, this is Chaz Roberts. I'm a personal injury lawyer. It's my life's mission to bring the law to the people in an easy and direct way. And that's the purpose of this podcast. You are listening to Law Have Mercy. So in today's podcast, we have a very special guest, my good friend, my law partner, my brother from another mother, Bradley Aldrich.
Hey Chaz, how you doing, man?
I'm good, my dude. How you feeling?
Feeling good. I'm excited to kick off the Chaz's podcast adventure.
All right, man. Well, so you do primarily personal injury.
Since I've been coming on board full-time with you in 2021, I've been doing exclusively personal injury. So about the last couple of years, that's 100% of my practice.
And did you ever think you would be doing this crazy stuff?
I did not have any expectation of personal injury law, did not have any background in personal injury law, either growing up, high school, college, even in law school. No, I did not really envision this is my practice. Kind of happened unexpectedly, but I couldn't be happier. I'm glad this is where I landed.
What do you think about personal injury law that moves you or satisfies your thirst for the law?
There's a lot I like about doing this. If I had to pick one thing the most, it's that we get to interact with normal, everyday people on a regular basis, which, as you know, having done some other types of law, and as I learned previously when I was doing other types of law, that is not true for a lot of lawyers. A lot of lawyers represent exclusively corporations, or they represent exclusively insurance companies, or they represent exclusively banks, that type of thing. There's really not a lot of areas of law where the average everyday person needs a lawyer. We talk about this a lot. There's really the big three. You get arrested, you get divorced, you get injured. Those are the three times that your average person is going to need, a lawyer in the course of their normal life. And
that's a good point. I didn't really think of it that way. I was thinking about this. It's actually the only type of law that I know where a person is not actually paying you a sum of money to begin the representation. They are signing their name on a contract, and then we are on the hook the same as had they given us $1 million to perform. They are just signing their name, and then we are now representing them.
Sure. And
have every obligation and every duty for their best interest with a signature.
Sure, even before they've paid us. And that is one of the ways that distinguishes this type of law from anything else we do, because I don't think there's any other type of law where that is the case. And even those other two that I was talking about, where your quote-unquote average everyday person might need a lawyer, a criminal or a divorce situation, you're certainly not taking either of those representations without getting some payment up front or have an hourly contract or something like that. So yeah, that's a good point. That another way that personal injury law really is unique. And those contingency fees are something that I'm sure a lot of people don't know about, or they may have questions about, may be confused about. But there really is a good reason for that, and it kind of ties into the fact that most of our clients are just regular people. And
a contingency fee being that the payment to the lawyer is contingent upon recovering a sum of money.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you helping me out there. Before we start talking about a contingency fee, we should probably tell people what a contingency fee is.
And that's in the contract. That's the basis of the contract. It's a contingency fee contract, right?
Absolutely. So everyone that hires us to represent them, hires you, hires me, hires the firm, they sign a contract like that. They don't have to pay us any money up front or at any point during their case. They just agree that once the case is over, if money is recovered, then we will get a percentage of that. That's what the contingency fee is. So why do we structure our fees like that? Well, that ties into the fact that most of our clients are regular people, and most regular people do not have the resources to fund litigation up front. They don't have $5, $10, $20,000 in the bank to pay for all of the myriad expenses that come with a long personal injury case, to pay for doctors, to pay for expert witnesses, to pay for court reporters to take depositions, to pay filing fees. You want to file a lawsuit in Louisiana these days, $500, $750, maybe even $1,000, depending where you
That's
file.
insane. Most people probably don't realize just to file a lawsuit, it's $500 minimum.
Absolutely.
$750, $800, $900 just to bring the suit forward, and lawyers pay for that.
That's just one of many expenses. And so because our clients need legal representation, they need someone to protect their interests against the parties that have harmed them and against the insurance companies, but they don't have that money up front, we agree we will fund the litigation in exchange for a percentage recovery on them at the end.
I think it's a great deal for the clients, not only because they don't have to pay for anything up front, but also you are piggybacking on the lawyer's reputation, experience, expertise that they've crafted, their good name, their goodwill, their knowledge of the system, their knowledge of other lawyers, adjusters, how everything works. It's a heck of a deal. I mean, I can't see why anyone would look at whatever the recovery is in the long run and say, I have to pay the lawyer X amount percent, usually 33%, and say that that's a bad deal.
And you've highlighted some of the reasons why it is so important to hire the right lawyer, because really once you hire a personal injury attorney, your case and your name and your reputation is linked with theirs. And that's a reputation that's out in the legal community among the defense attorneys, among the insurance companies, among the corporations. The
judges.
Absolutely. And so if somebody hires us, they're staking their claim on the name Chaz Roberts, on the name Bradley Aldrich, on the firm Chaz Roberts Law. But we like to think, and hopefully there is some value to that if a judge reads the lawsuit and they get to the last page and they see who filed this lawsuit, they see, okay, it's Chaz Roberts and Bradley Aldrich. One of them signed this document. We know these guys are legitimate. This is a legitimate claim. If an attorney on the other side that represents the insurance company gets assigned the case and they see our name, we like to think they'll think, okay, these guys will shoot us straight. They'll be honest. They'll be straightforward and professional throughout the litigation. And that really is it's a big deal. I don't know if people realize how much that, choosing the right lawyer really just helps things immensely once the case starts. Choosing the wrong lawyer could hurt you immensely, because if the judges or the attorneys roll their eyes when they see your lawyer's name, it's going to make things a lot more difficult to get you that fair and optimal result that you deserve.
Well, we also have a situation where people feel that they can represent themselves, right? And I used to have an analogy about, well, I don't even change my own oil. Well, I don't think anybody changes their own oil now. But it's really not comparing apples to apples, because there is so much nuance that we're missing. So I can change my oil, but I'm choosing to hire someone to change my oil as a matter of convenience. That's not what's going on here. When someone represents themselves, it's not just a matter of convenience and thinking they could put more money in their pocket. It's foolish, because the insurance adjusters understand that that person does not understand the law and cannot file a lawsuit and cannot bring a case to trial and does not know the right experts and does not know how to conduct a voir dire in front of a jury or cross-examine witnesses or prove their case, right? I mean, that's not a good analogy.
Well, if I could be so bold as to maybe extend it a little bit or just change it up a little bit, It's more akin to, let's say, rebuilding a transmission. That's what we're doing. It's something that's going to take a longer period of time and is going to have a lot more complexity to it, right? So even somebody that might go out and buy 5 quarts of oil and they can change their oil in their driveway, if they need to rebuild the transmission, they're like, all right, I got to get it to, an expert, someone who's experienced and knows all of the things that could go wrong and all the complexities that are involved in this.
But knows where to buy the parts and knows have read the manuals 20 times over and all the million things that it takes to do that and in a shorter period of time.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So a big thing that happens is people wait a long period of time before trying to hire a lawyer because they run into a dead end at some point. The insurance adjuster is still giving them a low ball offer like $2,000, $1,500, $500, and then they decide to call a lawyer. Can you explain why that's a bad thing?
Well, sure. There's a lot of reasons. I'd jump in right off the bat. You're probably just wasting your time. If your goal is to obtain your maximum and fair compensation, you're never going to get it without a lawyer. And so all those, any conversations you have with the adjuster on your own, you're really just wasting your time. The instant that the adjuster sees, oh, they have a lawyer, that bottom offer is going to do this, because that's been
right off the bat.
That's been studied. That's been analyzed.
I think the average is about 3 times.
And so
the average increase, the average offer increases by 3-fold.
Sure.
Yeah, right. So what you're saying is all those calls you had on your lunch break, or you missed a call and you're playing phone tag and you sent some documents and all that stuff over 6-8 weeks, you wasted your time because you got nowhere, and you could have had a lawyer handle all that stuff from day 1 or day 2 or day 3, right?
And then the instant you hire the lawyer, then they start making the real offers. They might, okay, we're going to have to actually play this one fair now that they are represented. Another reason why it's important to get a lawyer as soon as possible is because there are a lot of things. Time matters in your case, and there's a lot of things that an experienced personal injury attorney might know about what needs to be done in those early stages that you don't know. One example, gathering medical records. An insurance company is not going to pay you for medical bills unless they have documented medical records for the treatment that you received or the diagnostic procedures. Those medical records have to have all the proper coding and diagnostic codes and insurance codes. And then you have to have corresponding medical bills showing how much you were billed for those procedures, for that treatment. You can't just, the days are long gone of, mom and pop doctors' shops, and you walk in and you say, can I have my medical records? And they say, sure, here you go.
No, because they're being squeezed. They have time pressures. They have to see so many patients for insurance purposes and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And so as a result, most medical providers they're starting to become conglomerates. All of the hospital systems in Louisiana are conglomerates. You've got your Our Lady system, you've got your Ochsner system, just a few different systems are all the hospitals. They don't even handle their own medical records anymore. They contract all that out to third-party vendors as well. So if you want to get all of the documentation that you need to make the insurance company pay you fair value and full value for what the damages you've incurred, that's going to take time. You're going to have, and it's going to take some logistical jumping through hoops. You're dealing with potentially a national company that all they do is gather and send out medical records, but you have to check the right boxes and fill out the right forms.
We literally have someone that we pay full time to do nothing but gather medical records, and it's still a struggle.
And some firms, even larger firms with more attorneys or more clients than us, they even pay other vendors full time. They have people on contract where they pay them hundreds or thousands of dollars a month to handle all of their medical records gathering. So your original question was about reasons why it's important to call a lawyer right away. Well, that's a big one, because imagine trying to do that all yourself, especially say you had to take the ambulance to the hospital. Well, if you rode in an ambulance, the ambulance provider is going to have a set of records and a set of invoices that's coming from them. Once you get to the hospital, there's going to be a set of medical records that the hospital maintains. There's going to be a bill from the hospital, a completely different bill from the doctors that saw you. And if you had to get an MRI or an X-ray or a CAT scan, the radiology company that provided that imaging is going to have a completely different bill, potentially some separate records.
Yet there is someone right now somewhere settling their case for $2,000, and what you just described is about $5,000 of bills.
True.
So they're going to get a check for $2,000, and they're going to get $5,000 of bills.
And the bills might not come until
2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
Exactly. And meanwhile, you as average Joe person, you're living your life. You're going to your job. You're dealing with your kids, your family.
Yeah, but the adjuster told me they were going to take care of all those bills.
Yeah. As soon as you sign that settlement, the adjuster is on to the next case and is never going to think about you again.
Well, the reality is, I think the more as problematic as trying to obtain records, the other issue is, okay, you're waiting 5-6 weeks before contacting a lawyer, but you've been in pain this entire time, neck pain, back pain. You go to your family doctor says, have you been involved in a car wreck? Yes, I'm sorry, I can't see you. So then you're stuck. Then what do? You go back to the emergency room. That's another $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 of medical bills. An attorney, a personal injury attorney, can help guide you where you should go when you're experiencing certain types of pains and injuries, because we know providers. And the problem with waiting 5, 6, 7 weeks, the longer you wait to treat for your injuries, the harder it is to prove that the injury was caused by the wreck. And the insurance company and maybe one day a defense lawyer is going to say, well, Mrs. Smith couldn't have been that hurt. She waited 6 weeks to see a doctor.
Absolutely. We see that every single day in our practice.
Every day. Except for the people who come early.
Exactly. And again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with just normal people living their lives. They don't ever have an encounter with the legal system. That's why we provided a valuable service. Well, they also usually don't have needs for specialized doctors. Unless you've had, say, a sports injury where you tore up your knee, you don't have any reason to research who are the best knee surgeons in Lafayette. Unless you threw out your back and got an MRI and they said, oh, you have a herniated disc, you've never had any reason in your life to figure out who are the best orthopedic surgeons in Lafayette to go to if I need to repair a herniated disc in my lower back. Unless you've had some freak shoulder tear, you would never have a reason to say, who is the best shoulder surgeon in Lafayette? Well, we deal with these people every day. And
not only that, but you can't just go and schedule a visit with them, with an orthopedic surgeon, right? You have to have a referral, probably an MRI before they'll even see you. How do you get to that point? Your family doctor already said that they don't want to see you because you're involved in a car wreck. How do you navigate that? That's what we do.
We absolutely will help you and walk you through all of that process. A lot of the value that we add to our clients, it's just a reality of modern American life that our healthcare system is very complex. There's just no way around that. Everybody knows that. And the complexity can be scary and intimidating if you're not used to dealing with it. And so what we do is we take that off of your shoulders and we say, we will hold your hand and we will help you navigate through all of that complexity so you don't have to worry about the referrals and the paperwork and the billing and the requests. We handle all of that. You focus on getting better. You go to your appointments, you talk to your doctors, you figure out what medication, what procedures you might need.
I'm going to tell you another problematic thing with waiting. At the beginning of the phone call with the insurance company, you will hear this is a recorded line. So everything you say is being recorded. And, well, what's so bad with that, Chaz? I told them I was hurt. Yeah, but your neck and back are hurt, but your neck was hurting worse, so you only talked about your neck injury. So now they're going to say 6 months later, you're complaining of your back injury, but you only told us about your neck. And we have that on a recorded line. You gave a statement, right? Once our clients sign up with us, they do not speak to an insurance adjuster ever again. And that's for a reason, because what they say can and will be used against them.
For sure. And that was one great example you gave of a pitfall of giving a recorded statement. And we could probably think of 10 others. It's just as a person who's unfamiliar with insurance adjusters and the way they investigate, you're just not going to know what to say or what not to say and how they will twist your words and take things out of context. You hire us, we can cut that off. An insurance adjuster will never take a recorded statement before a lawsuit's filed if you're represented by an attorney. And so it just eliminates any chance of you accidentally saying the wrong thing, or as you noted, forgetting to say something. It could just be you forgot. Well, I talked about my neck for 5 minutes, and then they asked me about my property damage, and I just forgot to mention my back, which in reality was an innocent mistake, but which the insurance company will then hold up as some sort of gotcha moment, like, oh no, you were lying about your back injury. No, I just forgot.
And the adjuster is actually cross-examining you and leading you to say what they want you to say.
While pretending to be friend. Oh, I just want to help you resolve your case so you can move on, when in reality they're trying to trip you up or get you to say or not say the wrong things.
But our conversations with the adjuster cannot be used against the client.
Exactly.
Because we're just talking.
And we shield our clients from having to talk to insurance adjusters. Once you hire us, you will only have to speak under oath if we file a lawsuit and if your case proceeds to the point of a deposition. But if you get to that point, we will have represented you for a long period of time, and we will have prepared you for everything, and you will be comfortable and familiar with the process and know how to handle that.
How many cases do you think actually require a suit being filed? I think a lot of people assume that when they hire a lawyer, they're going to the Supreme Court. They're gonna have their My Cousin Vinny moment. It's gonna be in court, or Perry Mason for the older folk, whatever. And it's gonna be a long, drawn out process, and they're gonna have to testify in court, and they don't want all that stress and anxiety in their life.
I don't want to break your bubble too much, but I think My Cousin Vinny might start to fall into the older folk category too now.
Do you have any more recent references of courtroom drama?
Yeah, well, I think Law and Order is evergreen, right? I mean, it might be the 37th iteration. I think the courtroom drama is also, it's like the romantic comedy. It's a dying breed of Hollywood movie. The courtroom dramas, I guess, are now on Amazon Prime or Netflix. You were a big fan of Goliath. Would that count as a?
Yeah.
That was within the last decade at least, so it's not too dated.
Yeah, Billy Bob would get drunk in his hotel room for 6 months, and then he'd go try a $100 million case.
Okay, so not the most true to life.
No.
Okay.
No. His office was a motel off of the pier.
So it had a little bit of Lincoln Lawyer vibes, but
absolutely
even more extreme than that. Okay.
But that's what people assume when they hire a lawyer, sure. That's the process.
Right. So exact numbers, would be hard to say, but we could absolutely say a majority, so more than 50% of our clients never have to file a lawsuit.
And that's very conservative, right? We think that number is probably closer to 70%, that we never have to file a lawsuit.
At least, sure.
And in Louisiana, we only have 1 year. It's the shortest period in the country. I think there's 2 or 3 other states that have a 1 year period. Most states, it's 2 years, 3 years, even 4 years. So the only time we have to file suit, in some cases, we only have to file suit because we're up against that 1 year period.
Exactly.
Right? And the person's still treating, and we couldn't get a resolution.
And just to clarify, I don't think we mentioned what the 1 year, 2 year, what we're talking about. That's from the date of the accident.
Okay.
So if you're in a car wreck on today, January 6th, 2023 in Louisiana, you have to file a lawsuit by January 6th, 2024, or else you lose all rights. Whereas if you're if you're across the border in Texas, if the wreck's in Lake Charles, you got to file by next year. If the wreck's in Beaumont, you have a 2-year period in Texas, so you'd have until 2025. Just to clarify that period that we were talking about.
I have had several phone calls in my career where people have called 2 weeks before the 1-year period and said, "Will you represent me?" And I said, that is a very good way, easy way to get a malpractice claim. So no, ma'am, no, sir, I will not represent you. I will not be filing a lawsuit on your behalf. If you should have called me 10 months ago.
And is that because just the investigation period time was, and we just don't have enough time to figure out if they have a valid claim in that period?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It puts too much pressure and stress on our processes to investigate the claim, draft up the petition, get a check prepared, go to the courthouse and file a suit. That's a lot of pressure to do in a week. I mean, you might have a legal holiday. You may have weekends. And we all have lives, and we all have clients that have selected us timely, right? And I don't want to take away from them to dedicate those resources to someone who neglected their affairs for 10 months or 11 months, right?
Well, and that's interesting. When you mention that and you had to talk about the investigation of the claim, that makes me think about the general public's, well, I'm always thinking about the general public's perception of personal injury lawyers. I know it's something you think about a lot too, because we're trying to do things the right way, but let's face it, we know what a lot of people think of personal injury lawyers.
Yeah. Billboard, daytime commercial, ambulance chasers, etc.
And so when you're given that explanation, I think a lot of people's reaction might be, "What are you talking about, Chaz? You guys will hire anybody. Y'all take any case. You'll file any lawsuit. You'll make any claim. What are you talking about? Investigation, blah, blah, blah." So why don't you take the opportunity to explain a little bit about how we do it? Now, obviously not all attorneys, but how we investigate a claim, how we decide whether to make a claim, and how often we actually decide not to take a claim.
So someone calls our office and says, "I've been hurt in a car wreck." We schedule a meeting. I sit down with them and I look at them in their eye and I listen to what happened. We also request the accident report, which is prepared by the police. So I need to know that that person is legitimately injured, legitimately is serious about their case, and the accident report is very similar to what they are explaining happened, or it's plausible that there was some type of error in the accident report. Based on our experience, we can tell when there's miscalculations in the police report. Police aren't perfect, right? But we can request public records and get video footage or talk to other witnesses and see that the accident occurred the way our client spelled it out. And if that person was not at fault, and it has to be 100% at fault, if they were not, and it could be 50-50 or whatever, but if our client was not at fault, if our client was the innocent party in the situation and was hurt, then we accept the representation and then we march forward.
Okay.
So sometimes the clients call us and they're at fault and the police report checks out. We question the client. The client says, "Yeah, that's right, but I don't think that I should be at fault for this." And we show them the law and it says, "I'm sorry, you failed to yield in that situation." Well, they didn't have their lights on. Yeah, but there's no witnesses. You have no dash cam footage, no video footage, whatever you pulled out in front of them. We cannot prove that that person didn't have lights on at night, right?
And so
that's just an example. I can go on.
Sure. And so there are situations where even if a client called us with plenty of time and we do investigate, that ultimately we won't take the case due to a liability issue, right?
Yeah. You have to have 3 elements. You have to have some type of damage, right? And that can be physical damage, property damage, lost wages, some type of injury, right? Because if you're not damaged, if you walked away from and there's no scratch on your car and no dent in your car and you feel good, well, you don't have any damages. That's not a case. Number two is you have to have liability. Somebody else has to be at fault for this accident. And I keep saying accident. I'd rather say collision. Accident implies that there's no fault.
Sure.
Collision. And number three, you have to have insurance. We believe from our experience, our 13 years of experience now, we need an insurance company to pay because most people have no money. And certainly people who are reckless in their driving habits are so reckless that they don't even have insurance, and their financial being that they don't have insurance. The chances that they have any money to pay for your injuries is slim to none. Even if we spend the 3 years and get a judgment against them, after taking the case to trial, they can file bankruptcy the next day. So 3 elements: liability, damages, insurance. If you're missing one of those, you don't have a case, unfortunately.
You mentioned something about a dash cam. Is a dash cam something you recommend drivers get? I saw that, just looked it up on Google. It was like $130 for like a Garmin dash cam. Is that something you recommend?
$130 is probably a Cadillac version. I mean, you can get one for probably $70, $60. Sure. I bought one for my wife for Christmas, if that tells you what you need to know. If you are a rear-ending person, if you rear end another vehicle, there is 100% chance that you will be found at fault, unless you have a dash cam that can show that that person stopped short, didn't have their signal light on, short braked you, or something to that effect. So yes, I do recommend a dash cam. There's also some issues with road rage. I've seen it many, many times, and a dash cam may have that person think twice about doing something crazy, right? Because they know they're being recorded. So yes, and it's also, it plays into your psyche that you know that everything you're doing is being recorded. So it may make you think a little bit, be more careful with texting and driving, keeping your eyes off the road and focusing on what.
Because it can come back to hurt you.
Because it could come back to hurt you. Look, dash cams have made us and made our clients a lot of money from people who were at fault. Their own dash cam was used against them. So if it could absolutely hurt you, but you need to be careful when you're driving, right? And that dash cam could be a reminder to be careful.
If you're looking for a PI, I mean, a personal injury lawyer, you both said that, growing up, neither of you knew lawyers, and that's the case for so many different people. But if you're taking that first step after an accident, besides, I guess, just going to Google and searching personal injury lawyer, like what's the most efficient and productive way to find one?
Well, first of all, I recommend everyone follow us on our social media: Instagram, Chaz Roberts Law; Facebook, Chaz Roberts Law. And we're gonna provide a lot of information for people on what to do if they're ever in this situation, and it's preventative medicine. Hopefully, you're never involved in a wreck. Statistics show that you probably will be in your lifetime. So get learned up now, and let's build a relationship. Come into our community and see what we're about. I think Google makes a lot of money with people spending money on ads. So not all the cream rises to the top. Sometimes it's just the people who pay the most money rise to the top. And I don't have the money to fight the big boys, right? So come into our community, learn about us. We want to learn about you. And hopefully, God forbid it ever happens to you, we can help you.
And is that why you got into the digital space when it comes to like your Instagrams and now the podcasts?
Yeah, it's a format that I can use to tell people what we're about. I mean, Bradley's one of the smartest guys I know and one of the smartest lawyers I know. And, the world needs to hear from him, right? I mean, there are a lot of people that...
We'll let the world decide about that.
At least our community needs to know that there's a guy like Bradley here that has the horsepower behind him helping. And he's not on a commercial wrestling an alligator. So unfortunately, the ability for him to be exposed to people, and same with myself, We don't have millions of dollars to make commercials and billboards and all that other stuff, nor do we want that. But this is an easy way to get our message across.
And we kept saying over and over, we've talked about real people, regular people, whatever you want to call it, just your average citizens. That's our client base, and that's who we represent. That's why we love doing this type of law. And social media these days is the easiest way to reach the average person.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I enjoy coaching sports. My kids, I enjoy running. I just picked up boxing. Bradley loves sports. He's a basketball fanatic. He collects sports cards. We're just normal dudes. And I think through social media, we're showing that other side of us and that people can relate to. When you have a conversation with us, when you're lawyers, it's just like talking to an old friend. And you become a friend. I stay in contact with many, many, many of my clients. Send them Christmas cards. They swing by the office. We have a cup of coffee. I'm playing the long game, and I truly want to be their lawyer for life. And I know Bradley feels the same way.
Sure.
Where do you think that comes from? That want to do that and be more personable for people?
Because my family didn't have a lawyer in it, and where I'm from, the community I'm from, there aren't many lawyers. And so what I want to do with this podcast and social media and everything else is give normal people, everyday people like myself, like my family, like my friends, access to the law and lawyers. And I want to change the stigma and what people perceive lawyers being like. We're not some stuffy guys behind a desk, pointing their finger at them and being holier than thou. We are just normal dudes, and we're here to help you, and we care about you. And that's.
And one thing to continue off of that, one thing I like about the podcast format and why we're trying this out also, it gives a chance to show multiple sides, because your Instagram is great for showing the normal guy, Chaz. And that's part of what we convey to all of our clients, that they feel comfortable, that we're not going to talk over them. We're not going to use excessive legalese. We're not going to be confusing. We're going to try to break things down into everyday language and everyday concepts that our clients can understand. But the podcast also gives us a chance to talk in more depth on some legal issues, just to let the people know we do actually know what we're talking about.
Right.
There is some there. When the cases get complicated, which they do sometimes, you're still in good hands. You're not just hiring us because we're somebody that you'd want to watch the LSU game with. That we hope that that's true. We hope that you feel comfortable with us. But we also provide just as much legal horsepower as you're going to get from any other firm as well.
We are obsessed with this. We're obsessed with our craft. We're obsessed with staying current on the latest and greatest in laws and understanding what cases are valued, how adjusters look at it, how lawyers look at it, getting our clients the best care, getting our clients the best results. We're obsessed with it. We just also happen to have other lives on the weekends and after hours. And so I think when you combine those two things, the normalcy and the relatability with the legal horsepower, I think we offer a great thing, and hopefully we can get that message out.
Sure. So on that note, I think we have at least one or two other kind of concepts we wanted to break down a little bit that our everyday clients are curious about. We get a lot of questions about, or we just really try to give them tips, easy things they can do. And I know your favorite one of all time is uninsured motorist coverage. And half of our 6 viewers probably just tuned out when they heard that. But I promise you, when you see Chaz's enthusiasm talking about uninsured motorist coverage, you might change your mind.
That is a hill I will die on.
Absolutely. I'll be right there with you, man.
The uninsured motorist coverage covers you if you are injured by someone else who has no insurance or not enough insurance.
So important.
So important. So most people look at their liability limits to protect themselves from being sued by others and say, this is important. We need to get $100,000 or $250,000 of liability coverage to protect me from a lawsuit. But what's more important than that is when someone is drinking and driving and hurts you and your family, or someone that's just coming through the state with no insurance whatsoever, has nothing to lose, running red lights, not adhering to the rules of the road, and hits you, what are you going to do about your medical bills, your pain and suffering, your time away from work? If you don't have uninsured motorist coverage, you are screwed. I can't tell you how many times I have this conversation a week. I can't tell you how many times I have it over the course of my career. And we're talking about smart and sophisticated people that have a lot of insurance, but just didn't get uninsured motorist coverage. I don't even think you can say to save a few bucks, but some is just out of pure ignorance. Ignorance and I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't mean that person is ignorant. I just mean that they don't know any better. And so I've made it my mission to educate people on uninsured motorist coverage and why it's so important. You are actually presumed, there we go with that lawyer talk. You are presumed to have uninsured motorist coverage. You actually have to sign a rejection that you don't want it. If you don't sign a rejection that you don't want it, you have it. That's because the state says that you should have it, right? And not all insurance agents are created equal. Good insurance agents say, oh, no, you need uninsured motorist coverage. So, some are scared about losing the client and having them walk and it's cheap. It's not much more than what you already are paying for, but it's absolutely critical. And I could go on forever.
Sure. There's a lot to dig into there. In terms of the cost, we get it. Everything is expensive, and things are more expensive now than they've ever been. And everybody's looking for ways to pinch pennies and save money on the margins. How can I save a few bucks here and a few bucks there to make sure I can pay my mortgage or pay my rent? I can afford gas, the necessities of life, the light bills, all that stuff. And so because coverage is not required, unfortunately, that's one way that a lot of people say, oh, I could save a few bucks. Compared to your liability coverage, compared to your collision coverage, which are going to be on, it's so much cheaper.
But that's the exact reason that you should have uninsured motorist coverage.
Absolutely. Because
other people aren't paying for adequate insurance or have no insurance because they are also financially struggling. So if you can, you should get uninsured motorist coverage.
And we don't have exact statistics because there's no way to tell, how many people out there are driving without. You could probably get data on all the insurance that exists in Louisiana, but who doesn't have insurance, we don't know for sure. But there are ways to estimate pretty accurately, and it's usually 1 in 5 to 1 in 6, right? That's about
people are uninsured.
Yes,
completely uninsured.
I found an article. I mean, it's from 2018 from WWL TV out of New Orleans. They say, according to the Insurance Research Council, an independent nonprofit, 13% of Louisiana drivers do not have insurance. The Louisiana Department of Insurance says its figures show 15% of drivers do not have insurance, which puts Louisiana like near the middle of the pack when it comes to drivers with no insurance in the country.
So 15%, just to give you, and that from the Department of Insurance, that's right. 1 in 6 would be 16%. So we're looking at roughly, so when you go drive down I-10, just drive 5 miles, how many cars are you going to pass? 100? So 15 of those cars do not have any insurance whatsoever. Another statistic, and maybe Mr. Executive Producer, if he wants to do some more crazy Googling, I think the estimate is 30 to 40% of the people that have insurance, it's a minimum policy. So talk about that too.
So it's what I've always heard is 50 to 60% of Louisiana drivers either have no insurance or just the minimum.
Okay.
And so if you get into a wreck and you have any type of injury, right? So just the emergency room and the ambulance ride, that's $5,000 gone. You have to do an MRI, see some doctors. I mean, that $15,000 doesn't last long. And what if you're a high earner and you make good money and you're out of work for weeks or months or, God forbid, years?
What if you need a surgery?
What if you need a surgery? That's we just priced out a shoulder surgery is $42,000. A spine surgery is over $100,000.
So even if your luck isn't terrible, you got hit by somebody, it's not that they didn't have any insurance. They did have insurance. But odds are they only had $15,000 worth of insurance. Well, if you have this coverage, then it's not just that they have no insurance, it's also if they have inadequate insurance. So if you were hit by someone with that minimum $15,000 and your damages are, say, $40,000, well, your coverage will protect you there. It will fill that gap. Once their 15 is gone, you have more protection for you and your family behind it.
And if we're going to go way out in the deep end, it's only a 15-30 policy, meaning 30,000 total, 15,000 per person, 30,000 total. If there are more than 2 or 3 people involved in the wreck, you're getting even less than 15. You could only have 10,000 or even 7,500 available. That happens every day.
Absolutely.
We have lots of files that happens in, and it's just not enough insurance. And especially if you have good insurance and you're paying all that money, why not just spend a little bit more and get the real thing that can help you by the actions of others? You are a safe driver. You're a safe driver. You are cautious. You are financially responsible. Other people may not be.
And in fact, the data and the statistics show us other people aren't. They aren't responsible and they aren't cautious drivers.
And of your data, it's actually skewed. So the people that are less financially responsible are actually more reckless drivers. They may not be able to afford the high insurance rates because of their criminal or driving record. Mm-hmm. So they're actually more likely to cause the collision, the people who are uninsured. So we've thrown a lot out at you. It's very important. Get uninsured motorist coverage.
I couldn't find the statistic that you were looking for, but just something interesting. Who leads the nation in uninsured motorists is our neighbors to the east, Mississippi, at 29.4%. And then Michigan, Tennessee, New Mexico, Washington, Florida, Alabama.
Frankly, I'm a little surprised to see that Louisiana is not higher up on that list, and it almost makes me question the
validity of the research, right?
No, I mean, the Department of Insurance obviously has they're going to, in this particular aspect, they will do their best to find accurate data. They have no incentive to, if anything, they would want to exaggerate that number to encourage more people to get insurance. So I don't think they're intentionally, fudging the numbers on that, but that's a little surprising, and I wouldn't be shocked.
And for the record, that comes from policygenius.com.
Okay.
Look, it's been an amazing conversation. I look forward to having you back on the podcast and educating all these good people and helping steer them the right way, man.
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to seeing where the podcast goes.
All right. Well, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and like and subscribe to the podcast. And thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. None of the opinions of the guests reflect that of my own, and nothing in this podcast is to be considered legal advice or create an attorney-client relationship. This is for entertainment purposes only. Thank you for watching and listening. Hope you enjoyed.